Ladies and gentlemen, good evening, and welcome to the International Space University Space Studies Program Astronaut Panel. So this is actually one of the highlights of the Space Studies Program, which typically runs for 9 weeks, where ISU try to promote science and engage the public, and specifically younger generations, to be engaged with space and produce the next generation scientists, engineers, and people engaged in technology. So this event will be webcasted online all around the world, and also we encourage people to ask questions through Twitter at hashtag SSP18. I would like to thank Space Expo for hosting us in this amazing setting here this evening, and also would like to thank our sponsors, especially Airbus and Ariane Group. This panel we're going to be very diverse in the way we present things. ISU usually puts special emphasis on diversity from different geographical locations, different technical disciplines, and the gender balance as well. Unfortunately, our 2 female astronauts couldn't join us this evening because of last-minute circumstances, but they have sent us a video, and we'll be showing the video as we go along in the event here. So the structure is I'll be introducing Walter, and we'll be talking about the aspects of the astronaut selections, and we'll talk about astronaut days in space. So we'll try to hit all the operational and medical experiences. It will be a very diverse panel that for all of us here to enjoy. So with that, we'd like to start with Walter. So Walter is actually the current president of the International Space University, and he was with ESA for about since 1983. And he was head of coordination office for the astronaut there. So he had a lot of experience in the selection process and so on. So before we start, please let's give a warm welcome to our 3 panelists this evening.
So if I can have the video, please. What I indeed want to do in comparison to what we did with other panels, before I give the word to the experts, is a little bit give the framework on astronaut activities, in particular, if somebody is interested in becoming an astronaut, how do you become an astronaut? The first thing is that that you have to know is the difference between select in and select out. Well, André can talk more about it than me, but just as a global line, why? Of course, we want to have people which have the minimum probability that they have injuries or they have problems on board. That's why we select them so very carefully. If you look at the figures, a serious illness, here, terrestrial, we have 1 to 2% of a serious illness every year per person. So if you would calculate that with a 6-crew thing, that would mean that regularly we would have to interrupt. So what we're trying to do is bring people on board which are extremely healthy, as you can see. So we select them, no smoking. We select them in advance to be sure that they can still get ill, but the probability is lower. And that's the principle of risking. This is, of course, not the case for space tourism. In space tourism, you're going to select out. That means you take as much possible people as you can, if they are somewhere suited, cardiovascularly or something. Of course, if there is a risk, you don't do it. So, how do we select, in general, how do you select an astronaut? It's also for the youngsters here who want to become an astronaut, I guess. Yeah? So what will you have to do? So normally, an agency like NASA or ESA makes up a number of requirements. I will come back on these ones. And then people are asked to send a paper application, like in a normal application process. And then there are a number of screenings. First, the basic ones. Then astronaut qualification, medical qualification, and interviews. So you see, this roughly takes 9 to 11 months. So it's giving birth to an astronaut is a bit the same as giving birth to a child. So as you can see here, and I thank Volker Dammer for giving me the data, if you want to have something like 5 qualified people to have astronaut training, you have to start with 1,000. Because in every process, you have only a percentage that passes on. So this is how you do the selection to come up with the best. Medically, and what are the general requirements? The youngster there will have to wait a little bit. We are normally in ESA qualifying between 27, 37 years old, roughly in that order. We prefer to have people who have already a little bit of experience, primer experience, a few post-qualification after graduated. Medical requirements, yeah, it's just healthy people, but very healthy people. And in fact, most of the problems that you see statistically is most of the time eyes or cardiovascular that are the problems. And of course, we want psychologically very stable people. Then a person comes into an astronaut training, which is typically a basic training of 1 year, general knowledge, refresher of all the aspects. Normally then there is a mission training, which is also more generic, 1 year. And then waiting for a flight assignment, the astronauts are giving some collateral duties. This is, I know, Paulo, it's not always like that, but it's just a thing. And of course, when they have a flight assignment, they will know what they will have to do during their flight. So they are sent then in detail to be familiar with the experiments, with the repairs that have to be done, possibly with an EVA that has to be done. Now, at this moment, due to the fact that we go up and down with the Soyuz, we have virtually only 6 months missions. In the past, we had also shorter missions, but now, as the shuttle is not there anymore, before there were also people going with the shuttle and coming back after 12, 13 days. That's not the case anymore. So ZPK training, I think most of them, if you ask them what was very difficult, Russian language. But, I think they will all agree and then they get the normal training on all the systems, orbital mechanics and so on. But also more spectacular training sequences, like simulating extravehicular activities. You do that in a neutral buoyancy facility. So the weight is calibrated so that you stay plus minus on the same level, so like microgravity. Survival training, that is using whatever you have in the Soyuz capsule to survive in case you don't land on the right spot, which can happen. And we will have somebody talking about it who didn't land on the right spot, So-yeon. She landed pretty far away from a thing, and you can also land in the water. So, and then you get in detail, they get their training about the increment they will be involved with. What will be the experiments, what will be the repairs to be done, and so on. So that is then the last thing. Interesting, I found, is that in Russia, in particular in Russia, there is a very strict protocol over the last days what an astronaut is doing. It can be something to do with superstitious a little bit, but the Russians also told me it is also a question of giving reassurance that everything works on the same order in the same days. So in Moscow, before they leave, they will put, for instance, flowers on the wall at the Kremlin where the grave of Yuri Gagarin is, or the tomb of Yuri Gagarin is. Then they will sign in the guest book. Very interesting, if you go into the office, you will see in the office of Gagarin that the clock is still standing there and everything is still laying there like when he left the office. They keep that very, very careful under control, that it's very, very neatly done. Then they leave something like 2 weeks before the flight, they leave to Baikonur. Also very interesting is that they leave in 2 different planes. So the prime crew and the backup crew both leave in a different plane, just in case there is an accident with the planes. In Baikonur, there is also a very strict schedule. So a few days before the flight, they plant a tree. That's also, every crew has a tree there, so that's a very interesting. 3 days before the flight, they visit the place where Gagarin slept the last night before the flight. Then they go into the quarantine. 1 day before the flight, they get a very famous blessing ritual. That means that everybody in the room is wet, because they are the guy who is flushing around with this thing. I can tell you, he's not saving on water. Also very interesting I found is that 1 day before, the evening before the flight, they have to look at the film that Yuri Gagarin liked very much, which was The White Sun of the Desert. And now the interesting part of that movie is that all the people which are following the astronauts, the cosmonauts, I must say, I've seen that film 150 times. So every time that there is a scene in the movie and somebody opens his mouth in the movie, the whole room says already the next sentence, because they know the film by heart, of course, after so many times. Then on the launch side, a few typical things. The rocket always leaves at 0.700 every time. That is the time that the rocket left when Yuri Gagarin was there. And the good habit is that if you're a guest or if you accompany the astronauts, as I did in the past, is to put coins where the rocket comes over, but the astronauts are not allowed to put the coins there because that brings bad luck. So it is the guests who have to put the coins there, and then of course with the rocket, the coin is getting very big and very flat and not worth anything anymore, but okay. Also interesting, which I don't know if you knew that, no launch on the 27th of October. Because on the 27th of October there was an accident with things, so they never launch on the 27th of October, whatever the launch window is. And then they are called, of course, and that they are going to tell you much better than I do for a last briefing. So if you know now how we select astronauts in Europe, I'm not saying it's the same everywhere, but we're a bit under the same standard. We have two of them here who are selected, and you can see, I'm not going to read everything. Paulo was an engineer who worked in the training center also at the end from ESA, and that's also interesting for the participants because we have two good examples here. I have heard very often participants of ISU saying, I don't want to work for ESA or I don't work for NASA or for any other agency because then my chances are lower. That's not true. We have two examples of people who worked in the space sector before in astronaut activities and who became astronauts. So that's not true. That's a false rumor. You can also work for ESA, you can work for NASA and still have an astronaut career. Paulo will speak after, as was introduced by Omar, after we have a full videos of the ladies who unfortunately are not here today. He did 3 flights, which brings him to a total, correct? 313 days in space. Now the other one, astronaut here, of course, I do not have to introduce to you, André. André has a completely different background. He's a medical doctor, and he was also involved in a lot of neurovestibular and, let's say, astronaut-like activities before. It still is now. I understand you're still teaching that at University of Amsterdam, medical. You stopped it now, yeah. So he flew 2 times, which gives him a total of 204 days in space. I'm not going to say too much about their flights. That's why we have the people here to talk about it. And as was introduced by Omar, unfortunately, we have a problem that the 2 ladies, because we want to have gender balance, as you can see, we try to have as much as possible ladies in the class also. Unfortunately, the 2 ladies are not here, but they gave us 2. They were kind enough to give 2 videos. So could we maybe launch, I don't know in which order the videos are. Soyun, thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm So-Yan. I'm the first Korean astronaut, and first of all, I'm so sorry that I cannot be here physically with all other pupils here. I'm supposed to be here, but I have some kind of situation, so I cannot help leave a little bit early. But I think you all have in good hands, because I know there is the Paulo over there. It's 2-3 hours a whole night is not enough to hear his interesting story. But if I can add one more thing from my own space flight, and first of all, I fly once in 2008, already 10 years ago. I cannot believe it, it's already 10 years past. I had a training with a Russian crew, and I was officially part of the Russian crew member. Stay in a Russian compartment for a whole 9 days. I brought 18 different kinds of space experiments from Korean government, and most interesting part of the experiment is the educational experiment for the kids. Actually, 4 out of the 18 experiment was for the educational purpose. We bring some experiment from the science textbook from the primary school, middle school, and high school. That was really amazing because it is the way to inspire the next generation, way to make more astronauts in the future. So I feel a huge responsibility. Maybe all the astronauts might agree most amazing time in space station is to look down to the Earth. I was so impressed by the beautiful Earth down there, blue oceans and green mountains, and I never get bored. Whenever I have a little bit of the minute, I always open the shutter and I look down to the Earth, and that's really amazing. I cannot believe I came from that Earth. And because I'm from small little country, Korea, I always try to look down to my own country and take a photo, but unfortunately, space craft flying around is so fast. I wait and wait and wait for 90 minutes to come over to Korea, but once I pick it up the camera, come back, already passed. I realize how small country I am from, and that's really funny and ridiculous, but in the same time, I feel so grateful from that small little region of the world, because how low probability to be born in that little country, how low probability to be born in your city, how low probability to be born as a children of your parents, as a mother of your kids, as a citizen of your city and country. That's really amazing moment for me. And I'm thinking back, do I feel grateful enough? Do I say thank you enough? And I had a huge regret. And I've never thanked you enough for being a Korean citizen. I've never kind of thank you enough for my parents to be a kids of amazing parents. I've never thanked you enough for my country to be a citizen of that country, because we got a lot of benefit from country, no matter how good country it is, no matter not that good. And maybe a lot of the people, easy to complain about what they have already. We always complain about the phone signal, internet, traffic, jams and everything. But in that moment in space, I realized that if we complain about the traffic, it means you are living in the civilized area to have a car, have a road. And if we complain about the phone signal, it means your region has at least a smartphone and phones. It means we have opportunity to complain. So that was the most inspiring moment ever of my life when I was in space. And I can appreciate everything, air to breath, gravity to pull everything down. Even if we always complain about the gravity, how heavy we are, and that's because we cannot fly like a bird. But thanks to the gravity, we can put the camera down, you can sit down in the chair, you can lay down on the bed. If you sleep in the space with a sleeping bag and the floating everywhere, you feel so grateful for the gravity when you're sleeping on the bed. So, oh my God, I cannot count even how many things we already have, but we always forget to say thank you and feel grateful. That's the amazing moment, and that's the great moment. So, and also because we now know how low probability to be born in this situation, no matter how big effort we made, always start from the where we were born. Yeah, a lot of kids has a hard time, even if they made a much more effort than us, but they are still not in a good shape, not in a good situation, not because of themselves, but because of the situation. So let's just feel grateful more than before. Let's think about how thankful life we have, and let's try to count how many things we already got, how blessed life we have. That's the one thing I really want to tell the people whoever I met after my space flight. And a lot of people ask me, what makes your life change after your space flight? I always tell that during the space flight, I realized that how grateful life I have, how much blessed I have, but I've never known before that. So I really want to share this message to you guys, and look around you and look at your friends, look at your family. Sometimes you don't like your mom because she talk a lot and then she always make you clean your rooms and eat healthy food. I know that's not always pleasant, but remember, not that many people are concerned about you. And always you worried about your educational system and health system and all the political system. It means you belong to one country. A lot of refugees always wish to have their own country. but we already have one. That's because we can complain. So let's try to count how many things we can have, how much blessed life we have. That's the I really, really want to share with all you around this time in Astronaut Panel. And I know a lot of technical things, interesting things, you better hear physically in person from all these amazing astronauts. So I don't want to add. They will even explain much better than mine. But hopefully we will meet again, not only in Netherlands, but also around the world. I believe, I hope we can have another time to meet in person. Thank you so much. Have fun in this astronaut panel.
And our next video actually is from Nicole Stott, who's an engineer and NASA astronaut. She took part in several missions aboard the space station, and she's also participated in the first live tweeting from the International Space Station. Please give her a warm round of applause.
Hi everyone, Nicole Stott here. Greetings from Florida in the United States. And I just wanted to take the chance to say hi to everyone and apologize for not being able to be there in person this year for the astronaut panel, though I know you are in very good hands with the people you have there this evening. And just to take a chance to say that I am so thankful for the work that you're doing there. I hope you enjoy the time you have with everyone this summer and take best advantage of it. I think you'll find that the network of people and the opportunity you have is quite extraordinary. And I was really pleased to see that through your project work this summer that you'll be looking at how we use space exploration in the future to tackle some of our most challenging problems here on Earth. And I think it's one of the things that I love most about what we do in space right now. Off the planet, for the planet is the motto of the space station program. And I think all of you hopefully will agree that everything we are doing in space, everything from the science and the way we build and maintain our spacecraft to the relationships that we have in place, is ultimately about how do we improve life here on Earth. So I hope you enjoy your time. I hope you enjoy the panel session this evening. And I will just leave you with the 3 simple lessons that I learned that I took away from my spaceflight experience. And those are, and they are very simple. Number 1, we live on a planet. Number 2, we're all Earthlings. And number 3, the only border that matters is that thin blue line of atmosphere that blankets us all. And I hope you'll take the time to think about that in your daily lives and as you're working on your project, and that you'll leave there this evening as Earthlings. Hope to see you. Thanks. Bye.
Our next speaker for this evening is Paolo Nespoli. Paolo actually served on several missions as an engineer and is one of the most experienced European astronauts with more than 10 months spent in space. Please welcome Paolo Nespoli.
Thank you. Yes, so we'll take 10, 15 minutes to talk a little bit about the typical day on the space station, which is kind of a strange thing because there is not such a thing on the space station, meaning that every day is something different. But let's say, suppose there would be a typical day. There would be a typical day. Houston, we have a problem. No, it's not. Where is Houston? Oh, yeah. Where is it? No. Houston, we have no more problem. So, I don't know what's going on. Okay. Okay, can you go back? Are you handling this? There you go. So, typical day on ISS. Normally, we do about 40% of routine work. That means we need to make sure that the laboratory, this house laboratory is in working conditions. Because anything breaks, anything happens, anything you need to do, guess what? You are the manpower of the space station. So the space station catches fire, you are the firefighter. You know, there's to download or take all the things out from an arriving spacecraft, you are the manpower doing this. And so you need to actually make sure that everything works. Today we do work about 40% of our time for this. This is actually a pretty good time. It used to be like 60, 70, 80% of the time to make sure that the station is working. Now everything works pretty much nicely. And then 50% of the time we do spend in real activities. That's the reason why we go to space. We do science, technology, we do all sorts of activities. We will talk in details about this later. Then we have a little bit of time left for other stuff like outreach, you know, talking to schools, talking to somebody, doing other activities that are not purely technical or scientific, but they are helping, these activities help for allowing us to use this, meaning going to space, for further our knowledge and our capabilities. On the next slide, we do talk about the actual day. The day starts at around 7:30 in the morning. This is the official duty time, and it finishes up around 7:30 in the evening. So it's a pretty long day. On this time frame, we have about 8.5 hours of work, of duty time, where you really do what actually you always do what Houston is telling you to do, but this is really productive time. Then you have about 2.5 hours of physical fitness activity, because this is what we need to do every day on station to make sure that your body is still in working conditions. And then usually you have 1 hour lunch break. Unfortunately, usually gets eaten up by some kind of experiments or some activity, but officially you have 1 hour of lunch break. If you go on the next, you click one, you do have an hour and a half, what it was called post-sleep, and an hour and a half, what is called pre-sleep. This is usually when you wake up in the morning, theoretically around 6, and you start your day, you clean up a little bit, you have breakfast, you start brushing up on what you're doing during the day, you might start preparing some stuff. And then in the evening, after the activity, there is what is called post-sleep. You eat something, and again, you clean up. And then on the next click, we see that there is a sleep between 10 o'clock to 6 o'clock in the morning. In fact, the time between 7:30 in the evening all the way 7:30 in the morning is not really regulated. Usually it simply says pre-sleep, sleep, post-sleep, and you can actually do what you want. Do you want to stay up all night? You can stay up all night. You want to sleep all evening, all night? You can do that. Nobody's telling you anything. As long as in the morning at 7:30 you show up for work and you are awakened and you do the activity, this is fine. On the next slide, we can see a snapshot of a timeline that I took a couple of months ago. This was 3rd of May, 2018. We use a tool which is called Optimus. It's a specific tool built by NASA. By the way, it looks a lot ATD, which is a tool that we built at the Astronaut Center long time ago. In any case, you have for each one of the astronaut a line. There is a time on top of it. We use GMT time. And then there is a red line that is marching through the day. If you are a good astronaut, your task is to follow the red line. You should be doing what the red line is telling you to do. Because, you could be faster, you could be slower, and any ripple you throw into this carefully planned activity can cause a big problem. Imagine 6 people working in a small environment full of equipment, and have to make sure that they can work without hitting each other, having the resources available, making sure that everything is ready for them. And if you start not following the timeline for one reason or the other, you have a little bit of problems. I have to say that I flew the first long-duration flight in 2010 and 11, And it was a little bit difficult to follow the red line, because sometimes they would give you an activity and would say it takes 1 hour, and it really ended up taking an hour and a half. And then by the time you were in the middle of the afternoon, you could not anymore follow that line. So you had to talk to Houston, talk to the other guys in the crew, make a lot of arrangements. This time, I just came back last December. It was really amazing how the space station got really refined. There were not that many things that broke, so we never had to do any serious emergency thing and change the timeline, as it was pretty much whatever they ask you, they tell you that it would take to do an activity, it would really take that much, a few minutes more, a few minutes less. The timeline is planned, it's color-coded. If you see things that are in kind of violet, those are activities that can be moved easily. You don't even have to tell Houston. You can just look around. You can talk to some other the crew members. For example, if you look, all the exercises in violet, and obviously, if you don't do the exercise now and you do it later, you need to make sure that nobody is using the same equipment. But then there are some other activities which are actually black, and all the black activity you can move, those are movable, but you need to talk to the control center. Whatever control center is in charge of that activity, could be Houston, could be Moscow, could be Munich, it could be Tsukupa. You have to talk to them and make sure that they give you the go for that activity, because they have to do something before you can perform that activity. And then there are some others that are actually blue boxed. We call them blue boxed, like this one, that one, this one. Those need to be performed exactly at that moment. Cannot wait 2 or 3 minutes later. There is a special resource that is available only there. And if you miss the window, you're missing the activity. So you need to really be careful too. This is an ham pass. It means you're passing over a school, for example, and you're talking to the kids. Obviously, if you go 5 minutes later, the school is gone. So you better be there when the space station is over that school. It's a pretty interesting activity. I mean, the planners that prepare this planning for every day, they do a really good job, and it shows that space station is not the single astronaut going up in space and being, God. It's really a teamwork, and it starts with the people that prepare the experiment. It starts with the people that put together the equipment, make sure that all the resources are available on board, and then it goes to the planners, and finally, we as astronauts are just a little cog rotating inside a much more complex equipment, and we need just to make sure that we are rotating at the right speed at the right moment. On the next slide, I have just a few slides here of activities done on the station. Andre is going to talk about most of the medical, life science experiment later on. I'm just going through very quickly through some of the pictures just to show you a few things. This is a glove box, by the way. It's an ESA, the European Space Agency contribution to the space station. It's been given to NASA in return for other stuff. I'm sorry? Dutch even, it's built here. All right, it's a Dutch contribution to the space station. I would say that a lot of the modules are built in Italy, but then we start going that, so forget about it. There is a lot of European equipment up there. We do need the glove box because in space things float around, and sometimes you are handling equipment that could break, or some kind of gas or something, and you don't want this thing floating around the station, going in your eyes or breathing it, so you're better doing inside there. Next, we'll look at the Melfi, which is another contribution, European contribution to the space station. It's a freezer that goes to minus 90 degrees, because, these medical doctors want to preserve things, and so they need such a low temperature. Next one, it's still... This is Peggy opening up one of those Melfi things, and I would usually joke and say, you better have the gloves. You don't want your fingers sticking to the metallic part of the station. This one, it's another equipment that we have. This is an American equipment on the space station. It's actually a microscope looking at some culture. Here I'm handling some cancer culture cells. So we bring up in space all sorts of things, and we look at how this develop in microgravity. Next one, we are the subjects, so you can have different roles in space. Here it's Katie up there being the hands of the scientist, and I'm actually the guinea pig. She's trying to figure out if I still have some brain left. Not that much, actually. Okay, next. This is another interesting, so we do a lot of technical things. The previous one was a piece of equipment that was brought up last year, and it's actually an equipment that allows us to do research. And the previous one, it's a piece of equipment that is allow us to do research on there you go. It's a very interesting piece of equipment, very complicated, but it actually makes flames in space. And it's interesting, last year they actually discovered a brand new class of flames that burn at a lower temperature than the standard that we knew. And also, they are essentially invisible here on Earth. But in space, in the microgravity, in those conditions, we can actually see those flames. And this is important if you want to, for example, make sure that the fuel burns into the engine, burns all the way instead of spewing out unburned fuel. So it's going to really open up a new windows on this field. Next one was a simple fluid science experiment by Scott Kelly. I flew with him a few years ago. Fluid behave in a really different way in space, and it's actually interesting. Even simple things you cannot really predict. You know, gravity, we are used to have gravity between us, and we don't even understand sometimes how this influence basic physics things. And if we go in space, and all sorts of things open up. Next one, what we have. This was an interesting technological experiment. We do a lot of technological experiments on space. This is a kind of vest which was tested to see if you can put a vest with shields made of water to block some of the radiation, space radiation that you get when you're up there. We get a little bit more radiation while we are in space, but if we go to Mars, this is going to be really a problem. So they wanted to make sure, can we use the water from the space station to shield us? Can you work with this armor around you? Can you still work and produce? So this was a good technical stuff. Next one has to do life science again. This is one of these experiments. It was already up there when you flew. This piece of equipment was in space station for 10 years, and I think it's still on a space station. And we finally ended up completing the series of experiments. Very bad torture machine. Well, yeah, because these guys are kind of crazy. Yeah. So you did something like that. Well, okay, just going to talk about it because it's really interesting. Next one. This is just some of the pictures that I found around to show you the diversity of things that you may end up doing every single day on the space station. This is Katie with a furnace. You can put pieces of metal in there and actually melt them and make alloys in there. And these are actually perfect alloys because there is no gravity changing the structure there. Very interesting also for metallurgy and material science people. Next one. What do we have? Oh, we do have also, we use a space station for educational experiment. This is a really simple thing. We actually were growing stuff, little plants on station, but we had down on the ground like 200 schools in Europe with the same equipment, and together we activated the experiment. And telling to people, to high school people, an experiment is a plant growing. If you measure it, if you understand what's going on, this is also important. It's part of starting thinking about science. Next one, this is a picture that I took while we were doing this ham pass over the schools. It's simple, you're just talking to school, passing over to them. But it's really actually interesting to engage people, especially students. They understand what it means, the fact that you're flying at 400 kilometers, 28,000 kilometers per hour, makes them think about what's happening and makes them look up on the sky. Next one, it's some pictures with the exercise device that we have. This is one of them, is the cycloergometer. It's a very strange bicycle. Next one, it's the treadmill. on the wall, just like that. And the next one, I think we are done. Yes, this is just one of the last pictures. I told you that we have about 10% of the time where you do activity, outreach activity. This was taken while I was talking to the president of Italy from space, which is a way to make sure you involve many sectors of your country. Usually when a Dutch astronaut flies, all Holland is really looking up in space. When an Italian flies, this is the same. You know that we have a German astronaut on board of the space station right now. Everybody knows in Germany, but not that much outside Germany. So it's a good way to involve politics, the journalists, the media, everybody up there. And that's about it. I think I'm done. I'm cooked.
Thank you very much, Paolo. We will now listen to Dr. André Kuipers. Dr. André Kuipers actually is a Dutch physician and an ESA astronaut and has done great work on promoting space activities in the Netherlands. We had the honor of having him for the opening ceremony of the Space Studies program, and we thank him again for joining us this evening in the panel. Please welcome Dr. Kuipers.
I will talk about the strange thing of weightlessness and the medical aspects, because do we belong to space? Well, if we look at ourselves, we all started like this, floating around in an environment where we cannot breathe ourselves. We get our oxygen through hoses from the mothership. If you compare it with an astronaut, for example, outside, then we would say we're actually made for space. We're doing the same thing. But I'd like to make a step back. Are we made for Earth? These are our specifications. We are made for 1G, 1 gravity, 1 times the atmospheric pressure, 5 kilometers per hour on our own legs, and say 25 degrees Celsius. These are our specifications. That means that we don't belong on a big part of our own planet. We're not birds, we're not fish, but we have brains, we can build ships, etc. We adapt. So we can go to places where we don't belong. We can go underwater. We certainly don't belong there. We conquered the poles. We have to protect ourselves against the cold. Go into the mountains. People are wearing oxygen. New kinds of medicine started, new kind of things, because we knew things go wrong. If you go with the balloon up, first balloonist, they died of hypoxia. Okay, so you need to bring your oxygen. That's one thing you need to bring if you go up to space. So you got new kinds of medicine, aviation medicine, diving medicine. What happens to healthy people, because we're all healthy when we go up, in very unhealthy environments? It's not a nice place up there, we don't belong there. So, more things happen. Oxygen goes down, but also the pressure goes down. So we knew this already from divers. You get nitrogen bubbles in your body if you take the pressure away from your body. So we got to trouble we need a spacesuit. So you need your oxygen, you need your spacesuit, because otherwise you get decompression sickness like divers got. So you got space medicine, aviation medicine, diving medicine, and together more or less you have space medicine. And then you launch. Not like this. Jules Verne was thinking of launching a screw as a cannonball. This is not compatible with life. This would not work. So we had to wait for Mr. Tsiolkovsky, Russian science teacher. He came up with the rocket principle. Very, very nice that he made that up. But he also realized how you have to launch astronauts in this kind of position, because he realized there's a lot of acceleration, blood will flow from your head. So all kind of things that you have to do to make it possible that humans go up there. So to prevent that you get too much pressure points, we have this special seat liner if you launch, because that can go up to 3 Gs, at return up to 8. So you need to do a lot of different things. And then you have weightlessness. Well, Jules Verne had that right. There were no chickens in space yet, but for the rest it's okay. And you can do that a bit. Parabolic flights for 20 minutes, of 20 seconds, not 20 minutes would be great, 20 seconds, and then 10, 20, 30 times in a row, and you can do your experiments. So if you want to see what happens in weightless conditions, you can do already experiments for 20 seconds. But a lot of things take more time, so then you need to go into orbit. And we also try it, by the way, to test spacesuits, etc. So this is 20 seconds of weightlessness. If you want longer weightlessness, to test your vestibular organ, crystal growth, fluid physics or whatever, you need to go into orbit. So then you launch. And the launch is only 9 minutes, and then you are in space already, and then you keep on falling. That's the whole trick, of course, of weightlessness. Falling, falling, falling. If you fall, you're weightless. So that means that you can put somebody up with one finger, If you take the hand away, he stays there, of course. Everything falls with the same speed around the planet. Everything floats. Hairs float, everything floats. And then the misery starts, because your body is not made for that. So you get all kind of nasty effects in the beginning till the end. Space sickness, fluid shifts, circular changes, muscle atrophy, osteoporosis, higher radiation we heard already. So over time, there's a lot of medical things happening to your body. So we have to do something against that, of course. First thing that happens, space sickness. The Soyuz is going to rotate. And that's to keep the solar panels on the sun. So you make some kind of gyroscope of the Soyuz. But everybody knows, if you are in a rotating environment, on a chair, you rotate, and then you make head movements, you're very quickly very sick. So a lot of astronauts get space sick, up to vomiting. So in the beginning you don't feel that good. Head movements provoke it. It has operational consequences. You don't want us to have a sick astronaut doing all kind of important things. Selection is difficult. In the past they had all kind of tests, but it's very hard to correlate. There is medication for it. So we can do something about it. That's one thing that happens. You get sick. You get nauseated when you come to space. Everything floats. Also, liquids float. Not only the liquids outside of your body, also the liquids in your body. So you get a fluid shift. A lot of fluid is going into the upper body. Goes into your skin. So you get, we say, puffy face and chicken legs. Yeah? You get a thick face and bird legs, because you get this fluid shift. Doesn't feel nice. As if you have a cold, a bit of a headache. As if you're sick. We can measure it. With ultrasound, you could measure the thickness on the head. It's increasing, on the shin bone it's decreasing, so you can see this difference. You can measure the eye pressure. It goes up twice as high. We measured it several flights, eye pressure doubles. Luckily it goes down again, but you can clearly see this fluid shift. So that doesn't feel nice either. And then on top of that you get back pain. Because like you're sitting here, there's a lot of weight pushing on your vertebrae. And in between there is these elastic discs. They are not pushed down anymore, so they expand. They're elastic. So astronauts get centimeters longer in space, and that gives a nasty feeling in the back, so it doesn't feel too good. So in the beginning you think, why did I do this? You're nauseated, you have a headache, you have back pain, and you think, is this going to last for half a year? Well, luckily your body adapts, and after a while you feel great again. But in the beginning there's a lot of nasty things going on already. So we dock to the space station, and once you're docked you can get in, and then you get into a very strange world. A world where up and down doesn't exist anymore. In the Soyuz neither, but Soyuz is very small. Space station is pretty big, so you come in somewhere, your colleagues are at the ceiling. It's a bit confusing. Imagine you come in the living room in the morning or at the office and the others are there and there. It's a bit confusing. Where am I? Where are my colleagues? But after a while you get used to it. You can make these kind of pictures, so you get used to the situation. But it's a strange world. Sometimes I came in there and then I thought, I've not been here before. And why do they have lamps on the floor? Well, turn out that you came in upside down. There is no up and down. It's purely visual. You use that where your chin is pointing, there's the floor. So now my chin is pointing to the wall, well, that's the floor. It doesn't feel strange, it's just like that. It's confusing, because something you put away on the left side is now on the right side. And after a while, I did it on purpose. Then I went flying over the ceiling for half a day, and I had a totally different space station. You should do this at home. One day over the ceiling, your house is twice as big if you do that. You have to learn that you float yourself. If you don't fix your legs float up. If you don't hold yourself to your laptop, you push yourself off and you cannot reach the dashboard anymore. And a very nice one is the electrical screwdriver, because if you don't fix yourself, it's not the screw that's going to turn, it's you, like that. And of course, it's very nice to do things. You have the tendency to swim in the beginning, because it feels like being underwater. So, but that doesn't help really, because there's nothing to push off, so this doesn't help. Let's see the next one. Yes, this is nice, because the center of gravity stays there. It falls with the space station around the Earth. But around your center of gravity, you can do all kind of nice physical, the physical laws you can see very nicely in space. This is also one. So the weightlessness is great. And all the laws of physics that you learned at school, you can try out here. Very nice. Or this one, you know this one. Physics, beautiful physics. So, you are some kind of Spider-Man. But if you have to work on the ceiling, you go to the ceiling. If you have to work on the floor, you go to the floor. It's very easy. So after a while, you feel like a fish in the water. It feels very nice. And of course, we use it for all our experiments, like we just saw. And I don't want to say that an astronaut is a Superman, but sometimes we're Superman. Now, you have to learn how to float. In the beginning, you go too fast, and then you pull cables off the ceiling and things like that. One push of your finger is enough to float all the way to the other side, which is great, but also bad, because an astronaut is getting very weak. You don't use your body anymore. You don't have to stand up. You don't have to walk. So you get muscle loss, bone loss. You get your heart muscle weakens. There's less blood production, etc. So your body is saying, okay, you don't need it. Let's break it down. This is okay in space, but you want to go back as well. So we have to do something against that. Now, to prevent that your legs float all the way all the time, we have these blue handholds, or footholds, I should say. You put your feet under there, you have your hands free to work. And work can be easy, because there's no heavy object anymore. Weight doesn't exist in space. A big object like this, or a complete piano, we don't have one, but imagine, you can move around with one finger. It has mass, it can hit something, but you're very strong in space. So if you want to do some push-ups, push-ups are very easy. You don't have to push up your weight. So we can do that easily. So we have 2.5 hours of exercise. Well, very easy. You can even do this with one hand, of course. Now, I'm sure there are people in the audience who can do this with one hand, but then I challenge you to do it this way. So, try to repeat that. Now, things float. Which is nice, you saw all the nice things, but it's also bad because things float. So if you don't put your stuff away, it goes all kind of places. And you have to be very careful not to lose things around. So be careful, put your stuff away. With Velcro or lockers, if you open an experimental box like this, you're afraid that the data card moves out or a little cable, and it doesn't fall down, it can go everywhere. So you have to be very careful. And the smaller, the worse it is, because small objects, yeah, if you give it a little bit of energy, it goes everywhere. Like insects. This is like insects. If you give it a little bit of energy, it's very hard to control. A big object you can give a hit and then it moves slowly, but this goes fast and then forget it. You lose your stuff, you can forget it to find it back. And then if you lose it, well, that's why this is more or less my desk. Everything has to be fixed. With Velcro, with cords, with bogan arms, with elastic bands, with duct tape, grey tape. Everywhere in the space station you find grey tape to fix your stuff. So otherwise you lose things. Make sure that the zippers in your suit are closed, because otherwise things float out. And then if you lose something, you have a chance to find it back at the inlets of the ventilation system. Sometimes a week later, you find a data card that you lost or something. This is a picture of my daughter that I lost. And these are raisins. I played around with raisins and I couldn't find them back. Coffee spots on the ceiling, everything floats to these filters. And we float around also to clean that up. Saturday is cleaning day. We fly around on a vacuum cleaner to make sure that all these filters are clean and things like that. Now, food. It looks a bit like cat food, because everything has to be sticky. You don't want crumbs, you don't want droplets, so everything is a bit sticky with gel in it. And it's very nice, of course, to eat your food in weightless conditions. It's always big fun. And let's see. Yes, sometimes fresh fruit comes up with the cargo ships. You have some fresh fruits, which is very nice. And here you can see we play. If you have your free time, it's very nice to play with things that float. So everybody does it. All my colleagues have pictures like this. Everybody does it. So floating around. And the nicest things are, of course, fluids. This is a water droplet with inside the air bubble. And it's beautiful to see all these optics. For physics, it's very nice to see. And we do our little experiments. Of course, we do serious ones as well. But here is a little drop going. That's why these clamps are on the straw. Otherwise, you're constantly cleaning the ceiling. Now here's all the fluid physics: cohesion, adhesion, surface tension. With milk and orange juice, careful that you don't lose too many drops. And you can do your own little experiment. On Earth we are supposed not to play with our food, but in space we do it all the time. So you can do nice little things like this. So have to be careful, because, well, a little bit of energy and the whole thing breaks up, but you can do. It's so nice. Some people say milk and orange juice. And then, of course, Personal hygiene, how do you shave? How do you cut your hairs? Well, you have to fix the vacuum cleaner hose to your shaving device, and that's how you can do that. Otherwise, you get a cloud of hairs. And then washing, that's an adventure. The whole station is full of baby towels, wet towels to wash. But sometimes you want to be really wet. And then you can do it also this way. And then you can put some water on yourself. And water floats. So it sticks to you, adhesion, cohesion. But you can have very nice effects. You can even drown if you get to see your nose, which happened to another colleague, unfortunately. So, but it's, so you can, yeah, it feels wet, but it all feels straight. It doesn't go straight down from your body. And you see all these nice forces of the water and acceleration forces as well. Beautiful, fluid physics. And then, of course, the toilet. Weightlessness and the toilet. That's also, everybody wants to know that. First of all, you have to fix yourself, otherwise you float off. That's one thing. Then the urine, we collect separately. We make drinking water out of it. Solid waste in plastic bags goes in these buckets, and if it's full, it burns up in the atmosphere. Now, you have to do something to get it there, because everything floats. So before you go to the toilet, you have to create an airstream, and you have to switch on a vacuum cleaner, and you do this with this button, this knob, and you only forget this once. And the rest I leave to your fantasy. And then sleeping is strange, because what is sleeping normally? It's a mattress. You crawl into a pillow, you take a blanket. Impossible in space. You float away from your mattress, your pillow floats away. It doesn't matter where you sleep, you can also sleep on the ceiling. There is no up and down. So indeed, one person is sleeping in the ceiling, 4 people are sleeping upright, and 1 is sleeping in the floor. And this is my sleeping cabin, very small. You have some pictures of the family on the wall, a laptop to call and to listen to music. And then you close the door, turn off the light, you try to sleep. And that's strange. There are astronauts who wake up in the beginning, I'm falling, which is true. You are falling, but you never hit the ground. But you have to get used to the strange, weightless falling sensation. But afterwards, it's great, because you're never in the wrong position. You never have a pressure point. You never have to think, I'm on my back now, on my side. It's not needed anymore. So I slept actually very well. Now, all these things have effects on your body. So we do a lot of medical experiments. We take saliva samples. We are moved around with a special vest with vibration elements in it to see what's up and down, so orientation experiments, maximum exercise testing, all kind of different things to see how the body reacts to these weightless conditions. And things change indeed in the body that was too fast, over time. Even if you do other things, so here eye pressure measurements. Here's Nicole Stott, by the way, who we saw in the video. Also, if you do other things, you're still a subject for blood pressure measurements, for example. And what happens? Well, a lot of things happen. I only pick a few out. There's less blood production, for example. Your body says, well, you don't need all this blood. So you have less circulating volume, up to a liter less blood production as well, lung perfusion differences, a lot of things change. And on the long run, we have the problems with muscle atrophy, osteoporosis, radiation, and also psychological problems. This is Polyakov, also a medical doctor from Russia. He flew 437 days in space, just to test what you can do against these problems because of the weightless conditions. And what happens? Well, muscles, especially the muscles that keep you upright. A lot of things change in there. We'll not go into details there. But different reflexes, protein changes, a lot of things change. Your heart muscle as well. And to prevent that we become too weak, we heard already from Paolo, we have to do exercise. On a bike, he said already it was a strange bike. Indeed, it's a bike without a saddle, because you float, you don't need a saddle. So you have your bicycle shoes. And then, of course, let's see, yes, the treadmill. Shoes you don't need in space. It's only for the treadmill, and afterwards these shoes start to behave like living beings, and they try to escape. Every object is trying to do its own life, and they want to escape. Now, you can fix it so you get more force, so you have to learn your body that it still needs to work on the muscles, it still needs to build bone. Bone is the big problem, radiation and bone loss. Bone is living tissue. If you don't use it, you lose it. So we see a lot of bone loss in astronauts, especially in the matrix. Up to 25% in old Russian studies, a lot. Difference, of course, between people. The bones that keep you upright, that's clear. And then it continues a bit after return. So there's risks. fractures maybe. We don't know if for sure if it totally comes back, if the structure changes. If you have kidney stones in your history, then forget it to become an astronaut because too much risk. You see all the calcium in the urine going up, for example. Well, what is countermeasures? Pre-flight condition, very important. That's why we do sports before. Medication, we look penguin suit. The Russians have this special suit to keep pressure on the suit, and mechanical stimulation. You have to tell the bones that they have to make bone. So we have to do our exercise every day. Every day we have to do squats and heel raises and deadlifts. Every day you have to do weightlifting. Now, that is strange because there is no weight in space. So we do this differently. We have these big cylinders, and with a bar like this and the cables, then you create under pressure in these cylinders, and this is how you create the force. I show this like this because we're used that it looks like this. But in reality, the thing is on the ceiling. So somebody is walking on the wall, somebody is doing his squats on the ceiling. It's a very strange module if you get in there. Everything is different there. And then, of course, we have to go back. Back to this beautiful problem. But then we have a problem. Because your body adapts. You have less circulating volume. You didn't get out of your bed for half a year. So your blood pressure reflexes don't work anymore. We tested it in another flight. We have a pressure chamber around the neck. High pressure, low pressure. And then the normal reflex of your heart on ground disappeared. So we saw it disappearing. And the problem is, okay, in space you don't have to get up out of your bed. But if you go back, the reflex is not back yet. So you see people fainting when they come back. The blood pressure reflex faints. So to prevent that all the blood goes in your legs, we wear this special trousers to prevent blood pooling. The Russians have this device to bring under pressure in the lower body, so your body learns to withhold fluid. We take salt tablets, drinking, and then you get back in your spacesuit, and we then descend to the planet. Now, this is the most exciting part of the flight. It's not a launch, it's a re-entry. And because we are in here, you undock, so you float around beside the space station, but you still have a speed of 28,000 kilometers per hour. You put that speed in with a big rocket, but you don't have a rocket to take it out. So if you don't do anything, you keep on rotating, and then after a while, you're out of oxygen. So, small engine has to fire. It fires for 5 minutes, you get into a lower orbit. And because of that orbit, you enter the atmosphere, about 100 kilometers, somewhere over Turkey. And so the first exciting moment is the engine, that should work. The second one, because you start to brake in the air, you get friction, 1500 to 2000 degrees. So you could see the sparks and the flames. You push in your chair with 4 or 5 times your body weight. In some cases, it went up to 8. So it's a fireball you shoot, and then the parachute opening is also an exciting moment at 10 kilometers, and then you hit the ground. This is actually the less exciting. Oh, well, it's a big hit, but you know you're safe. If the parachute is open, you know you're safe. They take you out as a bag of potatoes, because your body is adapted to weightlessness. So if you pull up your hand, it's like a big magnet pulling you down. If you turn your head, it looks like the earth is on an elastic bend. So you get earth sick. Instead of seasick or car sick, you get earth sick. So that's why astronauts keep their head still. Your blood pressure reflexes don't work. This is the picture from my first landing. My colleagues, they were up for half a year. I was up there for 11 days on that flight. And you see the difference in color of his face and my face. But the second flight, I was pale as well. And your body has, well, you feel nauseated, so astronauts sit still in a chair, looking straight forward, and try to recover a bit. And if you put them upright, they fall, they faint, and the body doesn't react. The stand test, orthostatic intolerance with astronauts. So your body really has to adapt to the conditions, so they carry you into a helicopter, and then you have to get used to the fact that there is gravity again. I got a bottle of water. I drank the bottle, and in the middle of the air, I just let it go. Colleagues did this with cups of coffee, vases with flowers. You have to be careful with walking the stairs because you think you can still float. And of course, they want to test that. So you're still guinea pig straight away for a long time after your flight. You're still doing medical experiments. A stand and a rotating chamber, well, normally no problem. Now I fell over after 2 seconds, and I became nauseated of the test. You do all the tests before, that you did before, during the flight, you do also after the flight. They take muscle biopsies of you. They want to see how your body readapts to all to gravity again. So weightless is great. Your body adapts, but after a while, you have some problems. Bone loss is the most one. I lost 3 to 8% of my bone density. In the past, there were 20% cases. So the exercise helps, but you have to recover. And there's some kind of rule of thumb that you have to recover as long as you fly, more or less, so especially for muscle and bone. So you have to recover from that. And a lot of things happen in the body. It's not so nice in space. It's nice in space, it's great in space, but it's not so healthy. We're not made for that, so your body has to adapt. A lot of things happen. It's beautiful, very nice scientifically to investigate that, but very strange things happen when you go to space. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Kuipers. So now I would like to open the floor for questions and answer. Also would like to remind you that people can submit questions through Twitter at hashtag SSP18. So if you have a question, please come to the front of the stage. There will be people with microphones, and we could start the questions and answers. But before, as we settle up there, would like to start maybe some questions here. So Walter, we'll start with Walter. Based on your experience, what do you think are the qualities to have a good astronaut?
Well, as I said, of course, be in a very good condition, physical condition, is a thing. But I think the strongest quality is psychological. To be very stable, to be able to cope with being in space without your family, and doing that for days and days. The endurance, I think, is the right word. To do that for days, so it have to be really people who are as well physically, but in particular psychologically very stable, like these two people.
You both had fascinating experiences aboard the International Space Station. Maybe you can share with me one thing you would change about that experience?
Well, I talked about, like Paolo did, about the work. We go there for work, but of course in our free time to look outside and see this beautiful planet. I showed only one picture here, but that's of course a very, a big impression. I call it a cosmic feeling. I know that I live on a sphere, but if I look outside, the Earth is flat and the air is endless. And now I could really see I'm flying around the sphere. I could see Mars coming up and the moon. We had a comet during our flight. The sun comes up. You feel that you're part of something much bigger, of a solar system. And that was very, very impressive. A cosmic feeling, I'd call it, yeah.
Paolo?
Well, I think there are two things that are unique, at least in my experience in space. And those two things, by the way, I believe they will make space tourism a success. Because those are things that you can find only there, and people will actually want to fly there to experience these things. It's like going in vacation. Or you go in vacation, you go somewhere where you can find something different than your house. You don't want to, travel around the world and then find the same things. Well, up there, you can find microgravity, which you cannot find anywhere here. And then you can look at the Earth standing a little bit farther away than you can do here on Earth. And microgravity, actually, I had a good discussion not a long time ago. I was talking to Jean-Francois, and finally, I put a point on what it is, this thing of being in microgravity. Because, you say you can fly like Superman or something like this. But I think it's different. And so during the discussion, it came up the fact that here on Earth, somehow, you always have the sensation of your body. If you're sitting somewhere, you feel the seat, you are doing something. But if you are in space, you can be suspended in a way that you actually lose your body, and somehow you almost become pure conscious. And this is the first time that it hit me, like I could not express it, but 2 weeks ago, it's like, wow, it's true. You feel like pure consciousness, no body anymore. Wow. And this you can only have it in space.
That's fascinating.
And it's an incredible feeling. Wow. When I came back on Earth and I was on a spacecraft and I felt gravity, I felt like I'm in chain. Somebody put me and chained me down. Why? I want to be floating around. The other thing is like, here on Earth, we are like with our nose smack on the ground. It's like we are trying to look at a painting, but with our nose smack on the painting itself, and you just look at details. But if you want to see, I don't know, a portrait, the Mona Lisa, the Louvre, you need to stand back. And that's what happened in space. I mean, you see the Earth in a completely different way, and if maybe the first time you really feel you belong to that planet, and you feel, you know, what Nicole was talking about, the border between the Earth and space, you see a lot of things. So looking forward for going in space again, when maybe we go again in space, and all of you being up there and continuing our exploration and our furthering our knowledge.
Thank you. Do you have any questions from the public? Please go ahead.
We have a Twitter question. This is from astronaut Hayden, who is 8 years old. This question goes out to Astro Paolo. I'm 8 years old with autism. I see the world very different, and astronauts help me understand our planet better. What message would you have for kids like me in achieving our dreams in space exploration?
She said, Katie, what's her name?
Hayden.
Katie.
Hayden.
8-year-old. She wants to be an astronaut. Yeah, that's almost like me. You know, I was almost a 10-year-old. I wanted to be an astronaut. Of course, it was an impossible dream. I can only tell to people, I mean, I tell people when I do a presentation to school, I always finish with a slide that says something like, you know, the future is yours, meaning that you need to start working on your future. Start making sure that you do something. Because you have the capabilities, I would tell Katie, you have the capabilities of changing your future and bringing the future where you want to bring. The second part is that you need to dream, to have an impossible dream. You know, dream something impossible. If you waste your dream on something possible, it's already wasted. Dream something impossible and then just wake up and, you know, little by little, one step at a time, making mistakes, learning from mistakes, and challenging the status quo and doing things. Eventually, even impossible dreams come true. So I will tell Katie, you know, start dreaming impossible. Think if your dream is going to space, start working on it, and you know, there's a very good chance that will happen. The opposite is that if you don't even start, that's already secure. It's already done. It will not happen. So you better work on it because it will not happen by itself.
Okay, next question.
Good evening. It's an honor to be with you tonight. My dream has been that of becoming an astronaut, but as time goes by, I realize you work very hard, and I think we're going to be working very hard at ISU as well. So maybe I'm looking at becoming a space tourist. Obviously, there is a difference, but I think that your preparation is a lot more serious than that for a space tourist. So again, you know, kudos to your efforts. I admire everything you do. And my question is, what do you think of space tourism? Do you think we have the right to go up in space and earn our astronaut wings just by paying our way up?
I can answer that. I think space tourism is a normal consequence. We saw it with all kinds of transport. We saw it with ships, with planes. First it's experimental, then becomes military, then it becomes cargo and transport, and then you get also tourism. The same thing will happen with space. Of course, one thing is important. We have to make sure that it doesn't happen at the cost of the planet. If we have a lot of launches every day and we damage the ozone layer, for example, then of course you have to have questions, okay, maybe this is not the right technology for this. But if you can do it in a clean way that doesn't damage the planet for tourism, then I think this is a normal process. I think it will happen. We will see hotels in orbit around the planet and even further. So I think you have a good chance. Stay healthy.
All right, I'll try. Thank you. Yes?
I would say one thing.
Yes.
Is that, you know, it's kind of a pity that today for going to space, you have to be a professional astronaut because it takes a lot of time, a lot of, you know, at the end, you see, Andre, 200 and change days in space, 300 and change days in space, and we spend their whole life for doing this. Yeah. It's kind of a pity. You know, it's a pity that we fly medical doctors, engineers, pilots, But where are the philosophers? Where are the, I don't know, the theologists? Where are the poets? Where are the photographers? Where are the artists? You know, we are missing all sorts of faces of the population. And space is not only for engineers. So, I mean, this thing that you think the flying tourist is not good because, you know, tourism, they are paying. I don't think that's the right. I would like to see all sorts of people going to space, because right now we are missing a good part of what we could get from there simply because we don't send them up. And it's a pity. It's like, you know, if you would need to go to New York, now you have to spend 5 years to get a flight license to fly the 747 jumbo jet because you need to go to New York. That's kind of stupid, if you ask me. Right. I mean, there are people that want to do it and they like to do it. It's their profession. That's fine. But I prefer to be sitting back, possibly in business class. But also tourist class is fine. Yeah. And because I want to go to New York. See, this is what I'm saying. So yeah. I'm looking forward to flying space as a tourist. Finally, I'm going to be at the window all day long without Houston calling me, Nespoli, go back to work. You know?
That's right. Okay, I plan on being one of them too. Thank you very much.
Next question.
Well, hello everyone. My name is Valentina. I'm 15 years old. I want to study in aerospatial engineering, as you. My question is, I'm from Colombia. I love science. It's in my heart. And my question is, can you help make my dream come true of being an astronaut?
I think somehow we did already. I mean, the fact that you are here, you are interested, the fact that we show you that it's possible. I always tell people, I was a little kid that wanted to be an astronaut, and people would look at me. You know, I was 10 years old. What do you want to do in the ground? I want to be an astronaut. They would look at me like, good, study, you'll become one. Because it's impossible. It was impossible. Well, I'm here. I flew in space. That means that is possible. Now, unfortunately, being an astronaut today is not like cooking a pasta on your stove. You know, you take water, you boil it, you throw in the pasta, check 5 minutes, 7 minutes, and you pull it out, it's done. Doesn't work like that. What you need to do is just to prepare yourself, study. I would suggest you challenge yourself, understand your limit, both physical and mental. Understand that a lot of limits that you think you have, they're not really there, while you might find some that are really strong. Like, can you work with people? Can you cope with a complex organization? Can you stay for 300, 200 days in a small environment and work there under high pressure? You know, those you can check. Do sport. Do a lot of sports.
I practice CrossFit.
Well, do a lot of sports that challenge you in both understanding your physical limits, but also do sports that are team sports. You know, it's not just you going and scoring. It's the whole thing that needs to score, and that's important. So you need to do all of these things, try everything, and keep your goal to be an astronaut, and it might happen.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question, please.
Hello, good evening. In a way, I have a funny question. I'm an architect, also interior design. So each time that we are watching the movies from the ISS, it looks in some way, first of all, it looks very organized and very practical, but in other sense, it looks like very chaotic. So I want to ask you, how does the ISS contribute to the notion of home for you? It's like the notion of home, and in the material aspects, and what is going on when the video camera shuts down?
Okay, yeah, that's a nice one. Well, indeed, to start with the last thing, you're living in a glass house, because there's always cameras on, and people can watch on the ground as well. And sometimes you forget about that. And I remember one day I flew through the US lab, and I thought, I'm going to call my nephew. So I flew to my cabin, called my nephew, And he says, oh, great, I just saw you on the screen. I said, oh, which television program? No, live on internet. I said, live on internet? So I've totally forgot that cameras can be on. And sometimes NASA switches them on and everybody can look at the astronauts in the space station. And then you realize that you watched. So you were careful that everything is fine and so, and that nothing is hanging out. And so all of a sudden you realize again. So it can be annoying. So that's why we say in the evening when we had our daily planning conference, we switch off the camera. So we can be on ourselves, so you can feel more comfortable, more at home. Now, it's not home. It's very, you know what I miss most? Nature. There is no nature on board. It's all plastic, metal, it's all machines that make noise. And you start to miss nature. And I got a file from my Russian colleague with bird sounds, you know, just to listen to birds. And my American colleague, he took the green plastic strips of the food packages and he made a kind of kelp forest of it. So one of the modules was our underwater cave. You know, like sea lions, we floated through the kelp to get a feeling of nature. So it's not a home environment, except for your own sleeping cabin. You know, you have some personal things on the wall, you can listen to your music and have pictures of the family. But it's a very strange environment. But it didn't bother me. The lack of nature, that was what I noticed. But I could live there for another half year or something, no problem. Because it becomes your home even if it doesn't look like home.
Okay. One more question, please.
Hiya, thanks for being here today. I had one question because I've been studying international law for the past 4 years. So as you can imagine, there's a lot of arguing involved in that. And I was very curious to know how you resolved conflict in the International Space Station environment, because of course that's quite a stressful place to be and you're working with a lot of diverse people. So I was very curious to know that. Thank you.
Conflict. Let's fight.
We don't, we just fight whoever wins. No, actually, living in a confined and isolated environment is known to be one of the most provocative places where things can happen. I think at the beginning there was not that much understanding of this, but today we do have a lot of understanding. And everything starts with training, for example. Actually, I would say everything starts with selection, as Walter Peters said earlier. You know, part of the selection has a lot to do with how you work in a team, or what have you done so far that show that you can operate in a highly critical environment and still work focusing on the results, or conflicts. The first thing that we did when we were assigned on my first flight was a shuttle flight. The next day we actually took off and they sent us to Alaska. They dropped us off in a small island in the middle of nowhere, and then they told us, okay, here are 6 kayaks. We'll see you in 12 days, 100 kilometers away in this island. Here is your map, goodbye. And there was, you think it's kind of strange, but there was a simulated space activity, not in space, but you're still in a confined, isolated environment, in a place where you don't know what's going on. Nobody is used to paddle for 6 hours, so you are tired, you don't sleep, you don't eat. Somebody's slow, somebody's too fast, somebody gets there and lays down and sleeps, somebody instead is continuously blabbing, this kind of things. And there's when you start learning yourself, you start learning how to deal with a team. And we did a lot of these activities. We went under caves, in Italy, we were underwater, we were on the mountains. So we do all sorts of things like that where you understand yourself. Most of us, when they are in this kind of environment, either they become aggressive, very aggressive, or in the other part of the spectrum, they become, they close yourself in a corner and you don't play anymore. And you don't want to have these two things. So you learn yourself, you learn also how the other people react, and you learn what to do in trying to avoid this kind of situation. Because, as everybody who's married can attest, 2 people already in one house is too much or too little, depends. But then, for example, you start talking. As soon as there is a little bit of a little thing, we decided I need to say, hey, this thing is bothering me. Because what happens, you don't say anything, you don't say anything, you don't say anything. 3 weeks later, somebody slaps you and don't even know why, you know. But if you talk, hey, you should not put this thing here, for example. So we do in space, we do social things. We eat together when possible. We exchange things on what happens on the ground. We share tasks all the time. So you try to do social things, and then also in space you have your private place where you actually do what you want in that little place. And the space agency have done a lot of work in order to make sure that you don't feel isolated. We have a phone, a kind of a phone on the space station. You can call people from the space. It's very important. You call your family, you call your friends. You don't feel you're lost in the middle of nowhere. Nobody knows where you are. People tell you all the time, hey, you're doing good work. You're really good at a lot of work. And it's actually a pleasure to wake up in the morning and thinking, wow, what kind of great things I'm going to be doing this morning. And at the end, the whole crew is focused on obtaining the best result that they can. And when you're focused on the same goal, you actually forget about the little things that may disturb you once in a while. And you really are truly in there feeling grateful to be able to do this. And this is what I think brings the crew together, the team together, including the people on the ground, in order to achieve the best result possible.
All right, well, I would like to thank you, all of you, one more time for taking the time of your busy schedules to be with us this evening. And on behalf of the International Space University, would like to give you a small token of appreciation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good. Thanks.
I would also like to thank everybody that helped make this event happen, and also would like to thank our partners, the local organizing committee. So there will be a small opportunity now for people to take pictures with our astronauts here, and so if we start lining up, it will be great. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening.
you.